She threw a stone at the Alpha King's most feared beast, expecting to die. Instead, the giant white wolf quietly picked up the stone and placed it back at her feet. That single impossible moment uncovered a kingdom built on lies, a forgotten mate bond, and a secret powerful enough to change the fate of every child in the realm. The old market of Ashmore had forgotten what laughter sounded like. Years ago, traders had filled its narrow streets with music, spices, fresh bread, and colorful fabrics that fluttered beneath warm spring winds. Children had once chased each other between wooden stalls while mothers argued over the price of honey, and fathers boasted about the strength of their horses. No, the only sound was iron. Iron dragging across stone. Iron rubbing against frightened skin. Iron chains scraping through silence. A line of prisoners moved slowly through the center of the market beneath the gray morning sky. Their wrists were locked together by thick black shackles, their clothes torn by weeks of travel, their faces covered in dust that no rain had washed away. Among them were not soldiers, not criminals, not enemies. They were mothers, old men, young girls, and far too many children. Some looked no older than 6. None of them cried anymore. The tears had disappeared long before they reached Ashmore. Fear had replaced them. The guards surrounding the convoy rode proudly beneath banners carrying the silver crest of the Northern Pack Council. Every merchant who looked too closely immediately lowered their eyes. No one wanted trouble. No one questioned official law. Not anymore. A thick-bearded trader laughed as he pulled harshly on the chain connected to the first wagon. "Keep moving." One exhausted woman stumbled onto her knees. Before she could rise, the butt of a spear struck her shoulder. "You walk," the guard growled. "You don't rest." Her little daughter tried to help her. A second guard shoved the child backward so hard she crashed into another prisoner. The market watched. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Because everyone believed these transports belonged to the Alpha King. And standing against the Alpha King's law usually meant disappearing forever. Hidden among the crowd stood a young woman wearing a faded brown traveling cloak. Her hood shaded most of her face, but nothing could hide the anger quietly burning inside her pale gray eyes. Lyra. She carried no weapon, no title, no family crest, only a worn leather satchel filled with herbs, bandages, dried bread, and hope that seemed far too stubborn for the world around her. Her fingers tightened around the loaf hidden beneath her cloak. She had seen these caravans before. Too many times. Each one looked the same. Each one claimed to carry lawful prisoners. Yet every journey somehow contained frightened children. That alone was enough to make her doubt everything. She waited until one guard became distracted shouting at a merchant. Then she slipped through the crowd. Quick, silent, invisible. A little boy looked up at her through tangled black hair. His lips were cracked. His hands trembled from thirst. Without saying a word, Lyra pressed the small loaf into his hands. "Hide it," she whispered. "Eat slowly." His frightened eyes widened. "For me." She smiled softly. "For everyone beside you." The boy immediately tore the bread into tiny pieces, handing most of it to 2 younger girls chained beside him. Lyra felt something tighten painfully inside her chest. Even starving, children still shared. Adults had forgotten how. "Hey!" A guard's voice echoed across the street. Lyra stepped back into the crowd before anyone noticed. Her heartbeat settled only when the convoy continued moving. An elderly merchant beside her shook his head. "You shouldn't interfere." She didn't answer. The king's beast follows these transports. Still she remained silent. "They say it kills anyone who gets too close." Lyra finally looked toward him. "Have you seen it yourself?" The merchant hesitated. "No. But everyone knows." She looked back toward the chained children. "Sometimes everyone is wrong." The old man frowned. "You speak dangerously." "No." She quietly adjusted her cloak. "I only speak after looking." The convoy reached the center of the square. Suddenly, every horse froze. Birds exploded from nearby rooftops. The wind itself seemed to stop breathing. One by one, dogs crawled beneath carts. Merchants abandoned their stalls. The guards looked toward the northern road. Their confidence vanished. One whispered only 2 words. "He's here." A terrible silence swallowed the market. Something emerged from the forest. First, only white fur. Then enormous shoulders. Then eyes like polished silver beneath the morning light. The wolf stepped into the road without making a sound. He was enormous. Larger than any horse. His winter-white coat carried faded scars across powerful muscles. One ear bore an old tear. His amber-silver eyes held no anger. Only something much older. Something tired. The Alpha King's beast. Children immediately began crying. Several guards backed away despite carrying spears. Nobody wanted to stand between the legendary wolf and whatever had drawn his attention. The beast walked slowly toward the convoy. Never rushing. Never growling. Only watching. Chains. The frightened faces. The smallest children. He stopped. His ears lifted slightly. A tiny girl near the front accidentally dropped her rag doll. The toy landed only a few feet away from him. She stared at it. Then at the wolf. Her tiny body refused to move. Her breathing became quick, frightened gasps. "No!" Her mother whispered through trembling lips. "Don't!" But fear had rooted both of them to the ground. The beast lowered his massive head. One careful step. Then another. Straight toward the child. The entire market seemed unable to breathe. Lyra saw only one thing. Not the wolf. Not the soldiers. Only the little girl. Without thinking, she reached down. Her fingers closed around the first stone she could find. Smooth. Cold from the morning air. Every sensible thought disappeared. If the wolf attacked, it would attack her instead. That was enough. She threw the stone. Cut through the silent air. Crack. The rock struck the beast high on the shoulder. Gasps erupted from every direction. Someone screamed. A merchant dropped to his knees expecting blood. Several guards immediately ran backward. No one, absolutely no one, had ever struck the Alpha King's beast and survived. The wolf slowly turned. His enormous eyes found Lyra. The entire world disappeared. She expected him to charge. Roar. To tear her apart before another heartbeat passed. Does it? He simply looked at her. Long enough for every person watching to wonder if time itself had stopped. The wolf lowered his head. His nose found the little gray stone lying beside his paw. He gently picked it up. Carefully. As though it were something precious. Then he walked toward Lyra. Not quickly. Not threateningly. Quietly. The crowd scattered around him. No one dared remain nearby. Lyra stood exactly where she was. Her legs wanted to run. Her heart begged her to stay. The beast stopped less than 2 steps away. Close enough for her to see tiny scars across his muzzle. Close enough to notice old sadness hidden deep inside those silver eyes. Very slowly, he lowered his head. The stone slipped gently from his mouth, landing beside her worn leather boot. Neither of them moved. For one endless heartbeat, woman and wolf simply looked at one another. There was no growl, no command, no fear, only silence. Strange, heavy, impossible silence. Then the wolf glanced toward the frightened little girl, walked past Lyra, picked up the abandoned rag doll, carried it back, placed it beside the child. The girl stared in complete disbelief. The beast stepped backward, turned toward the forest, and disappeared among the trees without looking back. The silence he left behind somehow felt even louder. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, the little girl picked up her doll. She whispered, gave her stone back. An old woman crossed herself. A merchant dropped his basket. One guard muttered, "Impossible." Another quietly said, "The beast has never spared anyone who challenged him." But an elderly blacksmith shook his head. "No." His eyes remained fixed on Lyra. He didn't spare her. He thanked her. The word spread through the market faster than wildfire. The woman who threw a stone. The beast who returned it. No one understood. Least of all Lyra herself. She slowly bent down. Picked up the smooth gray stone. It was warm. As if it had rested beneath sunlight instead of inside a wolf's mouth. She turned it over in her palm. Nothing unusual. Just an ordinary river stone. Somehow, no longer felt ordinary. Behind the distant tree line. Hidden high upon a rocky ridge. Another pair of eyes had witnessed everything. Alpha King Kaelen sat silently atop his black stallion. He had watched every heartbeat, every movement, every impossible choice. His beast had obeyed no command in years. Trusted no stranger. Accepted no touch. Forgave no attack. Today, after being struck with a stone, it had calmly returned the weapon. Kaelen's fingers slowly tightened around his saddle. His voice was barely more than a whisper. "What did you see?" "That I could not." The wind carried no answer. Only the fading echo of chains. And a young woman still standing in the middle of the market, holding a simple gray stone. Completely unaware that, with one fearless act, she had just changed the fate of an Alpha King. And an entire kingdom. The story of the stone traveled faster than the prisoner caravan. By sunset, every inn, stable, and roadside campfire carried a different version of the tale. Some claimed the young woman was a witch. Others insisted she carried an ancient blessing. A few whispered something even stranger. The Alpha King's beast had finally gone mad. No one believed the simplest possibility. That the wolf had chosen mercy. Far above Ashmore, where cliffs overlooked endless forests, Blackthorn Keep stood like a silent guardian over the northern territories. Its walls had survived wars older than most families. Its banners rarely moved. Its king smiled even less. Alpha King Kaelen crossed the stone courtyard without speaking to anyone. His black cloak shifted behind him as soldiers immediately stepped aside. Nobody interrupted him. Nobody dared. For years, they had learned to read their king through silence rather than words. Today, his silence felt different. Not colder. Heavier. Behind him came the unmistakable sound of padded paws. Beast. The enormous white wolf walked through the castle gates without haste. Usually servants scattered before it. Today they still did. But the wolf ignored everyone. Its silver eyes never left one thing. Something held gently between its teeth. Kaelen stopped outside the doors of his private chamber. The wolf approached, lowered its head, and dropped the smooth gray stone onto the polished floor. Click. The sound echoed through the empty room. Kaelen stared at it. The same stone. The one thrown by the woman. His beast nudged it forward with its nose before quietly lying beside the fireplace. His breathing slowed. Its ears relaxed. For the first time in nearly 3 years. It looked peaceful. Kaelen slowly crouched and picked up the stone. Nothing special. No runes. No magic. Just a smooth river rock. He turned toward the wolf. "You brought it home." The wolf closed its eyes. "You have ignored wounded soldiers." No response. "You refused every healer." Silence. "You haven't trusted another soul since." His voice faded. The memory hurt too much. The wolf's ears flattened slightly. Kaelen regretted finishing the sentence. 3 years earlier, his younger sister had died protecting orphan children during the border rebellion. The beast had been beside her, unable to save her. Since that day, the wolf had become distant from everyone, even from Kaelen, especially from Kaelen. Today, a stranger had struck it with a stone. Somehow, instead of answering violence with violence, it had carried the stone back like a treasured gift. Kaelen looked toward the fading sunlight outside his window. What did she remind you of? Only silence. Somehow, the silence itself felt like an answer waiting to be understood. Many miles away, Lyra walked beside the prisoner caravan from a safe distance. She had no clear plan. Only questions. Questions had always led her farther than fear. The guards laughed loudly around their horses. Too loudly. Men who served justice never laughed beside crying children. She had learned that years ago. The convoy left the main road shortly before sunset. Instead of heading toward the capital, turned east, toward abandoned timber camps. Lyra frowned. "That's wrong," she whispered. Every legal transport entered the capital through the western gate. Why avoid the city? She quietly left the road and disappeared into the forest, keeping them in sight, always staying downwind. Every few minutes she caught glimpses of frightened little faces through the wooden bars of the wagons. Some children had fallen asleep sitting upright. Others stared blankly at nothing. One tiny girl still held the rag doll returned by the white wolf. She hadn't let go once. Darkness arrived slowly beneath the pine trees. The traders finally stopped beside an abandoned logging camp surrounded by broken fences. Torches lit one by one. Heavy cages were unloaded. Not prison wagons. Cruel cages. Lyra's heartbeat slowed. Not from calm. From disbelief. "This isn't transportation," she breathed. "It's a market." She climbed silently into the branches of a massive oak overlooking the clearing. Everything below became painfully clear. The guards removed official banners from their wagons, then replaced them with plain cloth. One trader laughed. "No inspectors tomorrow." Another nodded. "Good. The buyers from the southern territories pay double for young ones." Lyra felt sick. Children were being sold. Not imprisoned. Sold. One guard tossed a frightened boy into a cage. The child hit the ground hard but never cried. He simply curled into himself, trying to become invisible. An older trader looked over a parchment. "This one." He pointed toward the boy. "Blue eyes. Healthy. He'll fetch a fortune." The child lowered his head. His lips trembled. Yet he remained silent. Silence had become safer than begging. Lyra couldn't look away. Hours passed. The camp settled. Most guards gathered around a fire drinking heavily. Their laughter echoed through the forest. Lyra quietly climbed down from the tree. Every step became slower, measured, patient. She moved like someone who had spent years walking through dangerous places unnoticed. The cages stood beneath old pine trees. Children slept wherever they could. Some leaned against each other. Some held hands through the bars. One little girl quietly sang to her younger brother until he finally closed his eyes. Lyra knelt beside the nearest cage. A tiny voice whispered, "Are you real?" She looked up. The blue-eyed boy. He couldn't have been older than 9. "Yes. You shouldn't be here." "I know. They'll catch you." "They might." He studied her face. "You brought bread today." She smiled softly. "So you noticed." "I shared it." "I know. They needed it more." She nodded once. "I know that too." The boy looked toward another empty cage. "My sister was there." Lyra followed his gaze. "Where is she now?" "They sold her yesterday." His voice broke. "I told them to take me instead." They laughed. Silence settled between them. Finally he whispered, "I promised I'd find her." Lyra reached carefully through the wooden bars. Not enough to unlock them. Just enough for her fingertips to touch his small hand. "You will." "You don't know that." "No, I don't. But I know promises matter." The boy stared at her. "My name is Finn." "I'm Lyra." He looked around nervously. "Everyone says the white wolf eats people." She hesitated. Only for a moment. "I don't think that's true anymore." "You saw it?" "Yes." "Was it scary?" She smiled faintly. "Very." "Did it try to kill you?" "No." "What did it do?" Lyra looked down at the smooth stone resting inside her pocket. "It surprised me." Finn blinked. "I think," she whispered, "someone has been telling the wrong stories." A sudden laugh echoed across the camp. Lyra instantly pulled her hand back. A step. Someone was coming. She slipped beneath the shadow of a wagon seconds before a guard passed carrying another lantern. He stopped beside the cages, counted the children, spat onto the ground, then walked away. Lyra waited. 10 breath. 20. Only when the footsteps disappeared did she emerge again. Finn quietly held up a folded piece of parchment through the bars. I stole this. Her eyes widened. You did. They dropped it. I hid it. What is it? I can't read. Lyra unfolded it beneath the moonlight. Her heartbeat immediately accelerated. Official transport records. Royal seals. Prices. Beside every child's description. Gold amounts. Not taxes. Payments. Proof. Someone inside the kingdom had transformed innocent lives into merchandise. She carefully folded the document again. This is important. Finn nodded. I thought so. You were right. A low growl drifted through the forest. Every guard froze. The horses became restless. One trader cursed. The beast. Another grabbed his spear. It followed us. Panic spread instantly. Several men climbed onto wagons. Others searched the darkness beyond the trees. Lyra looked toward the forest. Nothing. Only darkness. Far between the pines. 2 silver eyes quietly reflected the moonlight. Watching. Waiting. Not attacking. Simply watching. The guards grew nervous. One shouted. Shoot it. Another grabbed his arm. Are you insane? That's the Alpha King's wolf. If you miss. No one finished the sentence. The beast took one slow step forward. Then another. The traders backed away from the cages without realizing it. Exactly as if they feared standing too close. Lyra understood immediately. The wolf wasn't hunting. It was creating space. Giving her an opportunity. She didn't question it. She moved. Rest. A loose iron pin held one corner of Finn's cage together. She pulled. It refused. She pulled harder. Shifted. One final effort. The pin slipped free. The wooden panel opened just enough. Come. Finn hesitated. My sister. We'll find her. I promise. He believed her. Without another word he crawled through the opening. Lyra took his hand. Together they disappeared into the trees while every guard remained focused on the glowing silver eyes beyond the camp. After several long moments, the beast quietly stepped backward, turned, vanished into the darkness without attacking a single soul. The traders slowly lowered their weapons. Confusion replaced fear. Why didn't it kill us? No one answered. 'Cause no one understood. Nearly a mile away, Lyra and Finn finally stopped beside a rushing stream. The boy struggled to catch his breath. She knelt beside him. We're safe. For now. He looked around nervously. Will the wolf come? Lyra gazed into the moonlit forest. Somewhere beyond the trees. She felt rather than saw a quiet presence watching over them. Not close enough to frighten. Not far enough to disappear. She smiled almost without realizing it. I don't think, she whispered. It's the wolf we should fear. Finn followed her eyes toward the silent forest. Neither of them noticed. High upon a distant ridge, Alpha King Kaelen had watched the entire rescue unfold. And for the first time, he no longer wondered why his beast had spared the woman. He wondered why it had chosen to protect her. The forest was quieter than it should have been. Not because it was peaceful. Because even the birds seemed unwilling to sing near the old library, hidden beneath the mountain cliffs. The stone building had once belonged to the first Alpha Kings, long before wars divided the territories into rival packs. Ivy climbed across cracked walls, moss-covered broken statues, and countless windows had surrendered to time. Most people believed the place was abandoned. That was exactly why Lyra chose it. No soldier would think to search for fugitives among forgotten books. Morning sunlight filtered through shattered stained glass, painting soft colors across rows of ancient shelves. Dust floated lazily through the beams of light. The air smelled of old parchment, cedar wood, and rain-soaked stone. For the first time since escaping the slave camp, Finn finally slept. He lay wrapped inside one of Lyra's blankets near a cold fireplace. His small body curled tightly around the rag doll that belonged to the little girl from the convoy. She had given it to him before they escaped. "If you find my brother," she had whispered, "give him someone to protect." The memory still hurt. Lyra quietly knelt beside the boy. She gently lifted the edge of his sleeve. Dark bruises circled his wrists where iron cuffs had rubbed his skin raw. She dipped a clean cloth into warm water. "Easy," she whispered, though he remained asleep. She carefully cleaned every wound before spreading a cool herbal paste across the damaged skin. Finn winced. Even in sleep, Lyra's heart tightened. Children should wake from dreams, not nightmares. Rain began falling gently against the broken roof. The steady rhythm somehow made the old library feel alive again. Lyra moved toward a long wooden table where dozens of forgotten records lay scattered beneath layers of dust. She unfolded the parchment Finn had stolen. Transport routes, official seals, payments. Everything appeared legal, until she looked closer. Each royal seal was almost perfect. Almost. One tiny line inside the wolf crest curved slightly differently. Forgery. Someone had copied the king's authority. Not well enough to fool a trained eye, but easily enough to fool frightened villages. She searched another shelf. Then another. Hours passed. Finally, she found an old volume labeled Northern Pack Law, revised following the border wars. Her fingers carefully turned the brittle pages. Nothing. Nothing. Still nothing. No law allowed orphan children to be sold. No law allowed families to be separated. No law allowed civilians to become property simply because they lived near a battlefield. She leaned back in her chair. So they lied. The words echoed softly through the empty room. They lied to everyone. Far away, within the towering walls of Blackthorn Keep, the royal council had already begun arguing. Long stone tables stretched across the great chamber. Silver banners hung motionless between towering pillars. Every chair was occupied. Every noble wore expensive clothing. Every face looked confident. Except one. Alpha King Kaelen sat silently upon the carved obsidian throne. His expression revealed nothing. But silence often frightened powerful men more than anger. Lord Varys broke the quiet first. "The southern border remains unstable." Several council members nodded. "We should increase prisoner transports." Another lord added, "The settlements require labor." Kaelen's fingers rested calmly upon the arm of his throne. "What settlements?" The question seemed simple. Yet several men exchanged uneasy glances. Lord Edric answered quickly, "The reclaimed mining villages." Kaelen looked directly at him. "Name them." Silence. The noble cleared his throat. "There are." He hesitated. "Several." "Name one." "Nothing." Kaelen's voice remained calm. "I asked a simple question." Lord Varys quickly interrupted. "Your Majesty, surely this discussion is unnecessary." Kaelen slowly stood. The entire chamber immediately fell silent. "When answers become unnecessary," he said quietly, "truth has already left the room." No one challenged him. Not openly. But many lowered their eyes. They knew the Alpha King had begun asking dangerous questions. The meeting ended hours later. Without answers. Without proof. Without peace. Kaelen stepped onto a quiet balcony overlooking endless forests. Cold wind brushed against his face. Behind him came familiar footsteps. Or rather, familiar paws. Beast. The enormous white wolf approached quietly before stopping beside the stone railing. It stared toward the western mountains. Toward the abandoned library. Again. Kaelen followed its gaze. "You want to go back." The wolf remained still. You've returned there every night. No reaction. You trust someone. Still silence. Kaelen closed his eyes briefly. I wish I understood why. The beast suddenly turned. Without warning. Without hesitation. It leaped from the balcony onto the lower courtyard nearly 20 feet below, landing effortlessly. Then disappeared through the castle gates before anyone could stop it. Kaelen almost smiled. Almost. You've made your decision. He looked toward the stable. Saddle my horse. Back inside the forgotten library, Finn finally awoke. He looked around in panic before spotting Lyra near the bookshelves. You stayed. She looked up from the ancient records. I said I would. He relaxed. Only a little. His stomach growled loudly. Lyra smiled. I heard that. From her satchel she produced dried berries, bread, and a small piece of goat cheese. Finn stared. That's a feast. It isn't. It is where I come from. He accepted the food carefully. Never grabbing. Never wasting. Watching him divide the bread into equal pieces, even though no one else needed it, made Lyra's eyes sting. You always share. He shrugged. If I eat alone, someone else stays hungry. Children should never have learned lessons like that. A sudden knock echoed through the library. 3 slow knocks, then silence. Finn immediately dropped behind the table. His breathing quickened. They found us. Lyra quietly extinguished the candle. She listened. No shouting. No armor. No horses. Only another knock. Gentle. Almost hesitant. She moved carefully toward the enormous wooden doors. One hand rested on the handle. Who's there? Calm male voice answered. A traveler. She frowned. Travelers usually use roads. I was following someone. Her heartbeat quickened. The guards. No. Silence. The books. Despite herself. She almost laughed. Slowly she opened the heavy door. Standing beneath the rain was a tall man wearing a dark travel cloak. His hood hid most of his face. Only calm gray eyes remained visible. He carried no royal crest. No visible weapon. Only a leather satchel filled with books. Kaelen. Disguised. He bowed politely. My apologies. I didn't mean to frighten you. Lyra studied him carefully. You found an abandoned library in the middle of a forest. I'd say your sense of direction is unusual. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth. I've been accused of worse. For a moment, neither spoke. Rain filled the silence between them. Then Lyra stepped aside. If you're only looking for books, come in before you drown. Kaelen entered slowly. His eyes immediately noticed everything. The fresh herbs, the carefully arranged blankets, the healing supplies, the frightened boy pretending not to hide behind the table. Nothing escaped an Alpha King's attention. Yet he revealed nothing. He walked toward one of the shelves, running his fingers gently across old leather bindings. You've organized these. Lyra shrugged. They deserved better than being forgotten. He nodded. So do people. The simple sentence surprised her. Most strangers spoke about kingdoms, power, or this man spoke about forgotten things. She found herself asking, You're a scholar. Sometimes. A teacher. When someone asks, a healer. He smiled faintly. I've failed often enough to appreciate good healers. Finn slowly peeked over the edge of the table. Kaelen noticed him immediately. Instead of approaching, he simply knelt where he stood, making himself smaller, less threatening. My name is Kael. Not quite a lie. Not quite the truth. Finn looked toward Lyra. She nodded gently. It's all right. The boy stepped forward cautiously. You read books. I try. Can you read this one? He held up an ancient storybook missing half its cover. Kaelen accepted it carefully. I know this story. Is it happy? Kaelen hesitated. It begins sadly. Finn lowered his eyes. They all do. The words settled heavily inside the room. Kaelen quietly sat beside the fireplace. So perhaps, he said softly, we should read until it gets better. Finn slowly smiled. The first genuine smile Lyra had seen from him. Hours slipped by unnoticed. Rain continued outside. As it, old stories replaced silence. Lyra watched from across the room as the mysterious traveler patiently read aloud, changing voices for different characters, pausing whenever Finn asked questions, laughing quietly at the funniest parts. Nothing about him matched the ruthless Alpha King described throughout the kingdom. Strange. She almost wished the world contained more men like this traveler. Across the room, Kaelen occasionally looked toward her. Not directly. Never long. Only enough to notice how gently she repaired torn pages with tiny brushes and careful hands. She treated books the same way she treated wounded children. As though broken things deserved patience, not pity. Something shifted quietly inside him. Something he had buried years ago. Beneath the ancient oak tree, the beast lay peacefully in the rain. Its enormous head rested upon crossed paws. Its silver eyes remained fixed on the library windows, glowing softly with candlelight. For the first time since the day Kaelen's sister had died, the wolf slept. No nightmares. No restless pacing. Only peace. Kaelen noticed it through the window. His chest tightened. He had spent 3 years trying to comfort the beast. This woman had unknowingly done it. Simply by being herself. He still didn't understand why. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the mystery. He wanted to follow it. And somewhere deep inside the ancient bond they shared, the beast already knew that this forgotten library was no longer just a hiding place. It was becoming the beginning of something that would change every life it touched. Rain stayed over the northern forests for 3 straight days. Not the violent kind that split trees or flooded rivers. This rain was softer, patient, the kind that settled into the earth until every path smelled of wet pine, moss, and fresh soil. The forgotten library seemed wrapped inside the storm. Its cracked stone walls glistened beneath silver skies while water slipped gently from broken gargoyles that had guarded the entrance for centuries. Warmth had slowly returned. A small fire burned inside the ancient hearth. The scent of cedar wood mixed with healing herbs hanging from the rafters. For the first time in weeks, Finn slept through an entire night without waking from nightmares. Lyra noticed before he did. Children who felt safe always breathed differently. Slower. Deeper. She smiled quietly while covering him with another blanket. You deserve peaceful dreams, she whispered. The boy never heard her. Across the room, the smooth gray stone rested on the windowsill. Exactly where Lyra had left it after leaving Ashmore. Several times she had thought about throwing it away. It was only a stone. Nothing more. Every time her fingers reached toward it, she remembered those silver eyes. The enormous wolf had every reason to attack. It had returned the stone. The memory refused to leave her. She picked it up once more. Still smooth. Still warm somehow. Strange. She placed it back on the sill. I don't understand you, she murmured. Somewhere beyond the trees, something quietly lifted its ears. Far away, inside Blackthorn Keep, Kaelen stood alone in the castle armory. Rows of polished swords reflected torchlight across cold stone walls. Most kings admired weapons. Kaelen barely looked at them anymore. His attention rested upon an old portrait hanging near the northern window. A young woman smiled back from faded paint. His younger sister, Princess Elin. She had always insisted children deserved protection before pride. 3 years earlier, she had died escorting refugee families through the eastern passes. Kaelen still remembered arriving too late. The broken wagons, the blood, the silence. The beast had refused food for 12 days afterward. Neither of them had truly recovered. A quiet knock interrupted his thoughts. Come. Captain Rowan entered. The investigation has begun. Kaelen turned. And The transport records don't match the council's reports. How many? We've confirmed 6 missing caravans. Kaelen's jaw tightened. Missing? Rowan nodded grimly. No villages ever received them. Silence settled heavily. Kaelen already knew what that meant. They hadn't disappeared. Someone had erased them. And Lord Varys. He insists everything is lawful. Kaelen looked toward the rain outside. He insists too quickly. Captain Rowan hesitated. Do you believe someone inside the council is responsible? Kaelen answered without hesitation. I believe someone profits every time a child vanishes. The room became painfully quiet. Then Rowan spoke carefully. The beast left again. I know. You no longer stop it. Kaelen's eyes softened almost invisibly. No, because wherever it keeps going, it's finally finding peace. That same afternoon, the rain finally weakened. Finn wandered outside the library carrying a carved wooden stick. I'm a knight. He swung it dramatically. No, Lyra laughed. You're frightening the butterflies. They're enemy spies. They're flowers with wings. They're suspicious flowers. She laughed louder. The sound surprised even herself. It had been months since laughter came so naturally. Finn grinned proudly. I made you smile. You did. Mission accomplished. The boy bowed dramatically, then suddenly froze. His eyes widened. The wolf. Lyra turned immediately. Standing beneath the enormous oak tree. The white beast watched them quietly. Rainwater clung to its thick white fur like tiny crystals. Its silver eyes remained calm. No growl. No raised hackles. Only silent observation. Finn instinctively stepped behind Lyra. She rested one reassuring hand on his shoulder. It's all right. How do you know? She honestly didn't. She believed it. The wolf slowly approached. One careful step. Then another. Stopping several yards away. Something rested gently between its jaws. Lyra recognized it instantly. The stone. Her stone. Again. The beast lowered its head. Placed it carefully upon the damp grass. Then stepped backward. Waiting. Finn whispered. It brought it back. Again. Lyra slowly walked forward. Every instinct warned her to stay away. Every heartbeat urged her closer. She crouched beside the stone. The wolf never moved. She picked it up. Looked into those strange silver eyes. Why? She asked softly. I already have it. The beast blinked once. As though it understood every word. Without warning. Turned away. Its body suddenly tensed. Its ears flattened. A low growl rolled through the forest. Not at Lyra. Beyond her. She followed its gaze. 3 shadows emerged between the trees. Wild wolves. Lean. Starving. Driven from their own territory by the relentless storms. Their yellow eyes fixed immediately on Finn. The boy stood frozen. One of the rogues lunged. Everything happened at once. The white beast exploded forward. Its roar shook the forest. The first rogue wolf never reached Finn. The beast slammed into it with overwhelming force, sending both animals crashing through wet ferns. Another attacked from the side. The white wolf twisted sharply, taking the bite across its shoulder before throwing the attacker backward. The third circled toward Lyra. She grabbed Finn's hand. Inside. They ran. The library doors slammed shut behind them. Through the broken window, she watched flashes of white fur disappear among the trees. Growls echoed through the forest. Branches snapped. Silence. Long. Heavy. Silence. Finn clutched her arm. Did it win? Lyra couldn't answer. She didn't know. Minutes passed. 5. 15. The rain returned. Steady. A familiar white shape emerged from the forest. Walking slowly. Too slowly. The beast reached the clearing before collapsing onto one knee. Its white fur was stained crimson. An arrow protruded from its shoulder. Not from the rogue wolves. From a hunter. Or worse, man. Lyra's heart stopped. The beast had protected them. And someone had already wounded it before the fight even began. The enormous wolf tried to stand. Its legs trembled. Then it collapsed completely onto the rain-soaked grass. Finn looked up at Lyra with frightened eyes. What do we do? She didn't hesitate. We save him. For one long heartbeat. Neither Lyra nor Finn moved. Rain continued to fall across the clearing, washing thin streams of crimson from the beast's white fur. The enormous wolf lay breathing heavily, every rise of its chest slower than the last. The arrow buried deep in its shoulder trembled each time it struggled for air. Finn's small voice barely rose above the rain. Is he dying? Lyra swallowed the fear rising inside her. No. The answer came too quickly. Not because she was certain. Because the child needed hope more than truth. She tightened her grip on her satchel and stepped toward the wounded wolf. The beast noticed immediately. Its silver eyes opened. Not with anger. With exhaustion. For a brief moment instinct returned. Its lips pulled back just enough to reveal long white fangs. A low warning rumbled from its chest. Finn instinctively stepped backward. Lyra didn't. She slowly knelt several feet away, careful not to move any closer. I know. Her voice remained calm. You're frightened. The growl faded slightly. I would be too. The wolf's breathing remained uneven. Rain dripped from its torn ear onto the soaked earth below. Lyra slowly opened her satchel. She deliberately removed every item one at a time. Clean cloth. A bundle of herbs. A small glass bottle. A roll of linen bandages. She wanted the beast to see everything. To know she carried nothing meant to hurt it. I'm going to help. Another painful breath escaped the wolf. You don't have to trust me. She looked gently into its tired silver eyes. But trust the hands. Silence answered. Not refusal. Not acceptance. Only silence. Very slowly, Lyra moved one step closer. The beast never growled again. Finn watched from the library doorway, holding his breath so tightly his chest hurt. He had never seen anyone stand beside something so powerful without fear. Or perhaps, Lyra was afraid. She simply refused to let fear decide what kind of person she would become. She reached the wounded shoulder. The arrow had entered high above the front leg. Its wooden shaft had snapped during the fight, leaving splintered edges surrounded by blood. Lyra frowned. This wasn't fired by hunters. Finn looked confused. How do you know? She pointed carefully. The arrowhead is forged from military steel. Her voice became quieter. Someone wanted him dead. The realization settled heavily between them. This wound hadn't happened by accident. Someone had deliberately attacked the Alpha King's beast. The wolf flinched as Lyra gently parted the blood-soaked fur. I'm sorry. She whispered the words almost like a prayer. This will hurt. The beast closed its eyes. As if giving permission. Lyra wrapped one hand firmly around the broken shaft. With the other, she steadied the powerful shoulder. Ready. She wasn't sure whether she was asking herself or the wolf. One quick movement. The arrow slid free. Fresh blood followed immediately. Finn gasped. The beast's muscles tightened so hard that its claws dug deep grooves into the earth. It never snapped. Never turned its teeth toward her. Instead, it lowered its enormous head onto the wet grass and endured the pain in complete silence. Lyra immediately pressed folded cloth against the wound. Good, she whispered. So very good. She crushed healing herbs between her palms until their sharp scent filled the rainy air. Carefully she packed them into the wound before wrapping the shoulder with clean linen. Her hands moved with practiced confidence. Gentle, steady, patient. Every touch carried kindness instead of fear. Something the beast had not felt in a very long time. High above the clearing, hidden behind rain-covered branches, another pair of eyes watched everything. Kaelen. He had followed his beast through the storm after discovering it had once again disappeared from Blackthorn Keep. He had expected danger. Perhaps another battle. Is it? He found a young healer kneeling in the mud, quietly saving the life of the creature everyone else feared. He remained completely hidden. If she learned the wolf belonged to the Alpha King, everything would change. No. He wanted to see the truth before titles stood between them. He watched Lyra gently wipe rainwater from the beast's face. Not because it helped the wound. Simply because she couldn't bear seeing blood cover its eyes. Kaelen felt something tighten painfully inside his chest. 3 years. 3 long years. The beast had rejected every royal physician, every healer, every command. Today, it rested quietly beneath the hands of a stranger. He whispered almost soundlessly, "What is it about you?" The rain carried his words away. An hour passed. The storm slowly drifted east. Gray clouds began breaking apart. A pale ribbon of evening sunlight slipped through the trees. The beast finally opened its eyes again. The fever had begun to ease. Lyra sat beside it, exhausted. Her clothes were soaked. Mud covered her knees. Her hands were stained with blood and herbs. She smiled anyway. "There. That looks much better." The wolf slowly lifted its head. For several seconds, simply watched her. Then something unexpected happened. Very carefully, the enormous beast leaned forward. Its cold nose touched the back of Lyra's hand. Just once. A gentle nudge. Nothing more. Finn's mouth fell open. He thanked you." Lyra smiled softly. "I think he did." The beast pulled back. Its silver eyes looked calmer than before. The fear that had always lived inside them seemed just a little smaller. At evening, a new fire burned inside the library. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Finn stirred vegetable stew while humming quietly to himself. The beast lay near the doorway. Not inside completely. Not outside either. As though uncertain where it belonged. Lyra noticed but said nothing. She simply carried over a wooden bowl filled with fresh water, setting it a comfortable distance away. "If you're thirsty." The wolf looked at the bowl. Then at her. Several long moments passed. Finally, it lowered its head and drank. Finn grinned. "He's staying." Lyra laughed gently. "No. He's choosing. There is a difference." The words lingered in the warm room. Even Kaelen, still hidden outside among the trees, found himself smiling. She understood something most rulers never did. Trust was never demanded. It was given. Night settled peacefully over the forgotten library. The fire crackled softly. Finn had already fallen asleep beside the hearth, clutching the rag doll against his chest. Lyra quietly covered him with another blanket. When she turned, he stopped. The beast was gone. Only fresh paw prints remained near the doorway. She looked toward the empty clearing. "I suppose that's goodbye." She whispered the words more to herself than anyone else. Then she noticed something beside the fire, resting carefully upon the stone floor. The smooth gray river stone. Again, she walked over slowly, picked it up. A small laugh escaped her lips. "You really are stubborn." Hidden beyond the trees, the white beast watched her through the darkness. Its tail gave the faintest movement before it silently disappeared into the forest. High upon the ridge, Kaelen watched his companion vanish beneath the moonlight. For the first time since his sister's death, the beast had left someone behind willingly. Not out of loneliness, out of trust. Kaelen looked toward the warm light glowing from the library windows. Toward the woman holding a simple river stone close to her heart. He still didn't know her name. She still didn't know his. But somewhere between a thrown stone, a healed wound, and a quiet fire shared without words, the first threads of a destiny neither of them had ever expected had already begun to weave themselves together. The forest no longer felt afraid of the white wolf. Every evening, Just as the sun dipped behind the western hills, enormous paw prints appeared along the narrow path leading toward the forgotten library. No one heard him arrive. No one heard him leave. He simply appeared. Sometimes he rested beneath the old oak tree. Sometimes beside the river. Sometimes near the library door, watching quietly while Finn laughed over stories or Lyra sorted dried herbs. And every single time, he brought the stone, the same smooth gray river stone, the one she had thrown, the one he had returned, the one neither of them seemed willing to let go. One golden evening, Lyra stepped outside carrying a basket of freshly washed bandages. The beast was already waiting. His injured shoulder had healed remarkably well. Only a thin scar remained beneath his snow-white fur. She smiled. "So, you've decided this is your home now?" The wolf tilted his head. She laughed softly. "I suppose that isn't really an answer." She knelt beside him. Without hesitation, her fingers brushed gently through the thick fur near his shoulder. The beast remained perfectly still. Not because he had been commanded, because he trusted her. High above the clearing, hidden among pine branches, Kaelen watched in complete silence. His chest tightened. For years he had believed trust, once broken, could never return. No. His own beast quietly disproved him every evening. Captain Rowan stood beside him. "I've never seen him allow anyone to touch him." "Neither have I." Rowan looked toward the library. "Should we reveal ourselves?" Kaelen slowly shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because she treats him kindly without expecting anything." He looked toward Lyra. "I don't want that to change." Inside the library, ancient records covered almost every table. Finn sat with his feet dangling from a chair, trying very hard to help. He held one old parchment upside down. "I found something." Lyra smiled without looking up. "Did you?" "Maybe." She glanced over. "Finn, the map is upside down." He quickly turned it around. "I knew that." She laughed. "You absolutely did not." The boy grinned proudly. Then his smile slowly disappeared. "Lyra, what if we never find my sister?" The room became quiet. She closed the old law book in front of her, walked over, knelt beside him. "We will." "You don't know." "No, I don't." His eyes filled with tears. "What if someone already bought her?" Lyra gently placed one hand against his cheek. "Then we'll find where they took her." "What if it's too late?" Her own heart hurt hearing the question. She answered carefully. "As long as someone is searching, it is never too late." Finn threw his small arms around her. She held him tightly. The beast quietly rested his head against the doorway. Watching, listening, protecting. Later that afternoon, Lyra finally uncovered something hidden inside an old wooden chest beneath the library floor. It contained dozens of forgotten royal records sealed with wax. Some had never been opened. Carefully, she unfolded the first document. Then another. Then another. Her breathing slowed. "This," she whispered. "This is it." Finn hurried over. "What?" She spread the papers across the table. "The original laws. The council changed them." "No." She shook her head. "They couldn't. They forged new copies." She pointed toward several paragraphs. "The Alpha King's law protects refugee children. It forbids selling prisoners after war. It demands every orphan be placed under royal protection." Finn blinked. "Then, the guards lied." Lyra nodded slowly. "Every village, every caravan, every family. They've all been lied to." Among the documents lay detailed payment ledgers. Gold amounts. Lord Varys, Lord Edric, 3 other council members. Every signature matched the forged transport records Finn had stolen. The truth finally stood before them. Not rumors. Proof. Real proof. Far away, Blackthorn keep prepared for another council gathering. Inside the great hall, Powerful nobles laughed comfortably over expensive wine. Lord Varys smiled. Our transports continue without interruption. Another councilman nodded. The Alpha King suspects nothing. Before anyone answered, the massive doors opened. Kaelen entered. The room immediately fell silent. He crossed the chamber without acknowledging anyone, then quietly sat upon the throne. Lord Varys forced a smile. Your Majesty, you requested another meeting. I did. Kaelen's voice remained calm. I have one question. Everyone waited. Where are the missing children? Silence. Lord Edric laughed nervously. I'm afraid I don't understand. Kaelen's eyes never left him. I wasn't asking twice. Silence. Finally Lord Varys answered. The transports follow ancient wartime authority. Kaelen leaned slightly forward. Show me. The noble hesitated. Our records. The originals. Not copies. Not summaries. The originals. No one moved. Kaelen noticed. His suspicions became certainty. Someone inside this room feared the truth. That same evening, the beast suddenly appeared at the library much earlier than usual. Something was different. Its ears remained alert. It was breathing faster. Its silver eyes searched constantly beyond the trees. Lyra noticed immediately. You've sensed something. The wolf looked toward the western road. Then back at her. Finn stepped outside. What is it? Before anyone answered, the distant sound of wagon wheels echoed through the forest. Lyra climbed onto an old stone wall, looking beyond the hills. Her face immediately hardened. Another convoy. Another line of chained prisoners. Children. Dozens of them. She climbed down quickly. They're moving another caravan. Finn's voice trembled. My sister. She could be there. Lyra looked toward the beast. The wolf stood, completely still, waiting, as though asking a question without words. She understood. We're going. Finn stared. There are too many guards. There always are. But someone has to help. The beast stepped forward, standing beside her. Not in front. Beside. Partners. Night covered the forest before the convoy reached an abandoned bridge. Hidden among the trees, Lyra watched carefully. This transport looked larger than the previous one. Nearly 40 prisoners, 15 children, 8 armed guards, 3 traders. She quietly counted everything. The beast crouched silently beside her. Finn remained hidden farther back exactly where Lyra had instructed. She studied the wagons. No cages, she whispered. They're expecting a fast transfer. She smiled slightly. That gives us a chance. She reached into her satchel, pulling out small cloth bundles. Captain Rowan, hidden with Kaelen's loyal soldiers on the opposite ridge, watched curiously. What is she doing? Kaelen almost smiled. I have absolutely no idea. Lyra quietly tossed the first bundle into the nearby fire pit. A moment later, thick gray smoke exploded upward. One guard coughed violently. Another shouted, "What is that?" Before anyone understood, 3 frightened horses panicked. The convoy immediately broke formation. That exact moment, the white beast burst from the darkness. Not attacking, running. Fast enough to draw every guard away from the wagons. There! One soldier shouted. The king's beast. Every weapon turned toward the wolf. Exactly as Lyra hoped. She sprinted toward the prisoners. Knife flashing. One chain. Then another. Iron cuffs fell to the ground. Go! She whispered urgently. Run into the forest. But, go! Mothers grabbed children. Old men helped one another. No one wasted time asking questions. Across the clearing, Captain Rowan looked toward Kaelen. Your order. Kaelen drew his sword. Now! Loyal royal guards emerged from every direction. Not attacking civilians. Only surrounding the corrupt traders. Lord Varys's hired men realized too late they had been trapped. Weapons fell, one after another. The traders surrendered without a fight. In the center of the clearing, one empty slave wagon remained, iron chains still hanging from its wooden sides. Lyra stared at it. Every cry, every bruise, every frightened child, every broken promise. It all seemed trapped inside that wagon. She reached toward a nearby torch. The flame reflected inside her determined eyes. Without speaking, she threw it. Fire climbed the dry wood almost instantly. Orange flames swallowed the wagon. Iron chains glowed red before collapsing into the fire. Kaelen walked quietly beside her, still wearing his traveler's cloak, still hiding his identity. Without saying a word, he picked up another burning torch and placed it beside hers. Together, they watched the slave cart burn beneath the night sky. Finn stood nearby, watching chains melt into glowing metal. Tears filled his eyes. They can't put children in that wagon anymore. Lyra rested one hand on his shoulder. No, never again. Beside them, the beast gently nudged the familiar gray stone toward Lyra's boot. She looked down, smiled, then picked it up once more. Kaelen watched the quiet exchange. Something deep inside him stirred. His beast had not simply chosen to trust this woman, had chosen her. He still didn't know why. But for the first time in many years, the future no longer felt empty. Felt possible. Smoke from the burning slave cart lingered over the valley long after the flames had begun to fade. The rescued children sat together beneath thick wool blankets offered by Kaelen's loyal soldiers. Some ate warm bread for the first time in days. Others simply stared into the fire, still unable to believe they were no longer chained. Finn searched every frightened face, every little girl, every pair of frightened eyes, again and again. But the sister he had promised to find was nowhere among them. His shoulders slowly fell. Lyra knelt beside him. You didn't fail. His voice cracked. But I didn't find her. She gently squeezed his small hand. No, but we found another trail. He looked at her. The ledgers. She tapped the leather pouch hanging from her belt. If your sister was sold, her name is somewhere inside these records. For the first time that night, hope returned to the boy's eyes. Across the clearing, the mysterious traveler quietly watched Lyra comforting the rescued children. Kaelen had spent years leading armies, winning battles, negotiating peace. Yet this simple act, one woman making frightened children feel safe, seemed greater than every victory he had ever celebrated. Captain Rowan approached quietly. The prisoners have confessed. Kaelen turned. And they worked directly for Lord Varys. They've admitted the council forged your seal. Kaelen's expression hardened. Any mention of the missing children? Rowan nodded. They're being moved before every council inspection. So no witnesses remain. Kaelen looked toward the stars. They believed I would never ask questions. His jaw tightened. They underestimated how much one brave woman could uncover. His eyes drifted back toward Lyra. She still had no idea who stood only a few steps away. 3 days later, Blackthorn Keep prepared for the largest council gathering in nearly a decade. Messengers rode across every territory. Regional alphas arrived beneath banners of silver, crimson, and black. Merchants gathered outside the capital hoping to hear new trade laws. Rumors spread faster than horses. Some claimed rebels had attacked royal transports. Others whispered that traitors had infiltrated the court. No one knew the truth. Only Kaelen, only Lyra, and those desperate enough to hide it. The forgotten library stood strangely quiet that morning. Sunlight streamed through broken stained glass, filling the old hall with soft colors. Finn carefully packed books back onto their shelves. You'll come back. Lyra smiled. I hope so. What if they arrest you? They might. What if they don't believe you? She tied the leather pouch containing the evidence securely around her waist. Truth doesn't become smaller because powerful people ignore it. The boy looked toward the doorway. The traveler. He isn't coming. He paused. She had not seen Kael for 2 days. For reasons she couldn't explain. She missed the quiet conversations they shared. I suppose he has his own journey. Finn grinned. I think he likes you. Lyra laughed softly. I think you imagine too much. The white beast stood beneath the old oak tree, watching, waiting, as if it already knew where this day would end. The journey to Blackthorn Keep took most of the afternoon. The capital looked magnificent from a distance. Towering stone walls, silver banners dancing in the wind, hundreds of guards standing watch. Yet as Lyra entered through the massive gates, she noticed something unsettling. People spoke in whispers. No one trusted the palace anymore. Fear had reached even the heart of the kingdom. A royal messenger approached. Lady Lyra. She frowned. Yes. The council requests your presence. She exchanged a confused glance with Finn. How do they know my name? The messenger simply bowed. Please follow me. The royal council chamber was larger than Lyra had imagined. Marble pillars stretched toward an impossibly high ceiling. Massive windows flooded the chamber with afternoon light. Powerful nobles filled both sides of the room. Every conversation stopped the moment she entered. She felt dozens of eyes studying her. Some curious, some cold, some openly hostile. She looked toward the throne. Her footsteps stopped. The world became strangely quiet. The traveler. The quiet scholar who had read stories to Finn beside the fireplace. The man who had spoken gently about forgotten books. The stranger who had never once demanded respect. Sat upon the Alpha King's throne. A silver crown rested upon his dark hair. Royal guards stood behind him. The beast lay calmly beside the throne. Lyra stared in complete disbelief. Her voice barely escaped. Kael. He slowly stood. My real name. His expression remained calm but filled with regret. Is Kaelen. Silence swallowed the chamber. The truth struck harder than any blade. Everything suddenly made sense. Beast. The soldiers. Questions. The knowledge. He had been the Alpha King all along. You lied. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Kaelen met her eyes. I hid my name. That is the same thing. Before he could answer, Lord Varys rose dramatically. Your Majesty. His voice echoed through the chamber. This woman admits hiding fugitives. Several council members immediately agreed. She interfered with lawful transports. She attacked royal property. She burned government wagons. Lord Edric pointed directly toward Lyra. She is a traitor. Murmurs spread throughout the hall. Finn instinctively stepped closer to Lyra. She placed one protective hand in front of him. Kaelen remained silent, watching, waiting. Lord Varys smiled inwardly. He believed he still controlled the room. Lyra slowly untied the leather pouch from her belt. If speaking the truth makes me a traitor. She looked around the chamber. Then perhaps this kingdom has forgotten what truth looks like. She emptied dozens of parchments across the council table. Original laws, forged seals, payment ledgers, transport records. The room fell silent. One elderly council member picked up a document. His eyes widened. This. He compared 2 royal seals. They're different. Another noble unfolded a payment ledger. Gold transfers. His voice became uncertain. To private accounts. Lord Varys's confidence began disappearing. Forgery, he shouted. Those papers are false. They're originals. Lyra answered calmly. Found beneath the royal library. Lord Edric quickly stepped forward. They could have been planted. Really? Lyra lifted another document. This one carries the signature of the former Chief Justice. The elderly judge seated near the throne slowly stood. He examined it carefully. Then looked toward Kaelen. It is genuine. A heavy silence spread through the chamber. Suddenly, the massive doors burst open. Everyone turned. Nearly 40 villagers entered together. Behind them came mothers, fathers, former prisoners, children, every one of them carrying the same story. One elderly woman stepped forward. "They took my grandson." A young father lifted empty iron shackles. "They sold my daughters." Another survivor quietly raised branded wrists. "They said it was your law." One by one, the voices filled the chamber, not shouting, simply telling the truth. The weight of honest voices became impossible to ignore. Finn slowly stepped away from Lyra. His knees trembled. He had never spoken before so many people. Kaelen noticed. He nodded once, not as a king, as encouragement. Finn swallowed hard. "My name," his voice shook, "is Finn. They took my sister. They told me I would never see her again." He looked directly toward Lord Varys. "You laughed." The chamber became deathly still. The boy's quiet words carried more power than any speech. Several nobles lowered their heads in shame. Lord Varys suddenly reached beneath his cloak. Steel flashed. A hidden dagger. "Enough," he roared. "If the kingdom wants monsters." His eyes filled with desperation. "Then let it have one." He lunged toward Lyra. Before anyone else could move, a white blur crossed the chamber. Beast. One powerful leap. A thunderous growl echoed beneath the stone ceiling. Lord Varys froze. The wolf stood between Lyra and the dagger. Its silver eyes burned with quiet warning. It never attacked. It never bit. It simply refused to let fear win again. Royal guards immediately surrounded the traitorous nobles. Weapons clattered onto marble floors. The coup ended before it truly began. The chamber slowly became quiet once more. Kaelen stepped down from the throne. Not as a king delivering judgment. As a man carrying regret. He stopped before Lyra. "I owe you the truth." She looked at him silently. "I hid my identity because..." He searched for the right words. "I wanted one person to speak honestly to me. Not to my crown. To me." Pain filled Lyra's eyes. "You should have trusted me." "I know. And I was wrong." No excuses. No royal authority. Only honesty. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lyra looked toward the frightened children gathered inside the chamber. Toward Finn. Toward the beast standing quietly between them. Her anger remained. But something else slowly found space beside it. Understanding. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But the first small step toward it. As the late afternoon sun poured through the great windows, the Alpha King's crown suddenly seemed far less important than the promise forming silently between two wounded hearts. A promise that would soon be tested by something far older than crowns. The truth hidden inside the mate bond itself. The council chamber remained silent long after the traitors had been taken away. No one hurried to speak. No one celebrated. Justice had finally entered the room. But justice did not erase years of pain. The frightened children stood together near the great windows, watching royal guards lead Lord Varys and the other corrupt nobles toward the palace prison. For the first time in years, the chains belonged to the guilty, not the innocent. Finn quietly watched them disappear. Then he whispered almost to himself, "They can't hurt anyone now." Lyra rested her hand gently on his shoulder. "No, they can't." Yet there was no joy in her voice. Only relief. Because healing never happened the moment evil disappeared. Healing began afterward. Evening settled over Blackthorn Keep. The palace gardens overlooked endless forests painted gold by the setting sun. After hours inside the crowded council chamber, Lyra needed air, needed silence, needed distance from crowns and secrets. She walked slowly through the old gardens until she reached a quiet stone fountain hidden beneath ancient willow trees. The water flowed gently. Birds had finally begun singing again. She closed her eyes. Everything had changed. The quiet traveler, The man who read stories to Finn. The stranger who laughed over dusty books. He was the Alpha King. She wanted to feel angry. Part of her still did. But another part remembered every conversation they had shared. Every quiet smile. Every gentle word. None of those moments had been false. Only incomplete. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. I hoped I would find you here. She opened her eyes. Kaelen stood several steps away. No crown. No ceremonial cloak. Only the same simple dark clothing he had worn inside the forgotten library. For the first time since revealing the truth, he looked less like a king. More like the quiet man she had first met. Neither moved. The fountain filled the silence between them. Finally, Kaelen spoke. I won't ask for forgiveness. Lyra looked at the flowing water. Good. Because I'm not ready to give it. He nodded. I understand. I think you do. Another silence settled. Not uncomfortable. Simply honest. You knew I hated lies. She said quietly. I did. And you still hid your name. I wasn't hiding from you. He looked toward the darkening sky. I was hiding from the man I had become. Lyra slowly turned toward him. What does that mean? Kaelen smiled sadly. When people know you're king, they stop speaking honestly. They tell you what keeps them safe, not what keeps others alive. His voice became softer. When I met you in the library, you spoke without fear. You challenged me. You questioned my kingdom. You reminded me what truth sounded like. Lyra searched his face. For the first time, she realized how tired he truly looked. Not physically, emotionally, like someone who had carried an invisible weight for far too long. A sudden breeze swept through the gardens. The willow branches swayed gently. Heavy footsteps echoed across the stone path. Beast. The great white wolf walked quietly into the garden. Its shoulder had healed completely. Only a faint scar remained beneath its thick white fur. Finn followed close behind, carrying something carefully in both hands. The stone. He smiled. He brought it again. Sure enough, the smooth gray river stone rested in the wolf's jaws. The beast ignored everyone else. Its silver eyes remained fixed only on Lyra. Lily crossed the garden, stopped before her, lowered its massive head. The familiar stone landed softly in her open palm. She smiled. I think this belongs to you now. The beast looked at her, then gently nudged her hand upward. As though refusing, Kaelen watched carefully. His heartbeat slowed. Something impossible happened. The wolf stepped even closer. Very carefully, it lowered its enormous head beneath Lyra's hand, waiting, not for a command, for affection. Lyra hesitated only a moment before gently resting her fingers against the thick white fur between its ears. The beast closed its eyes. Long, peaceful breath escaped its chest. The entire garden seemed to become quieter. Even the fountain sounded distant. Kaelen suddenly felt something deep inside him shift. Not pain. Not magic bursting through the air. Something quieter, older, like two separate heartbeats suddenly finding the same rhythm. His breath caught. He knew this feeling. Every alpha was taught about it as a child. The mate bond. This wasn't how legends described it. There was no blinding light. No overwhelming force. No ancient voices whispering destiny. Only a feeling so gentle it almost went unnoticed. Kaelen stared at Lyra. She looked up at the exact same moment. For one endless heartbeat. Neither spoke. Neither understood why simply looking at one another suddenly felt different. Safer. Warmer. As though somewhere deep inside, their souls had quietly recognized each other long before their minds had. The stories were wrong. The words escaped Kaelen almost without thinking. Lyra frowned. What stories? The ones about mate bonds. She looked down at the sleeping beast. I always heard they happened instantly. So did I. They said two people would know immediately. Kaelen smiled faintly. I think they confused recognition with understanding. She looked back toward him. What do you mean? I think. He searched for the right words. We've been walking toward this moment for weeks. The stone. The library. The children. The healing. The truth. None of it happened in a single heartbeat. It happened one choice at a time. Lyra looked at the smooth river stone resting in her hand. She remembered throwing it. Certain she was about to die. Everything had begun. Finn quietly sat beside the fountain, watching them. He looked toward the beast. Can I ask you something? The wolf slowly opened one eye. The boy smiled. I think you've liked Lyra since the first day. The beast gave the smallest movement of its tail. Finn laughed. I knew it. Lyra shook her head. You're talking to a wolf. Finn shrugged. He listens better than most people. Even Kaelen laughed. A genuine laugh. The sound surprised everyone, including himself. Had been years. Years since laughter had come without guilt. Lyra looked toward him. You should laugh more. I forgot how. You didn't. She smiled gently. You only needed someone to remind you. As darkness settled across the gardens, servants quietly lit lanterns along the palace paths. Golden light reflected across the fountain. The kingdom beyond the walls remained uncertain. The council still needed rebuilding. The missing children still had to be found. Finn's sister was still somewhere beyond the northern borders. Nothing had been solved completely, but something important had changed. Hope no longer felt impossible. Kaelen slowly stepped closer. Not close enough to frighten her. Only close enough for honesty. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. Neither do I. But I know one thing. She waited. I don't want to face it alone anymore. Lyra looked into his gray eyes. She could still see grief there. Regret. For now. She also saw something new. Trust. Not because fate demanded it. Because both of them had earned it. She reached out slowly. Not to take his hand. Not yet. She placed the smooth river stone into his palm. You keep it tonight. He looked surprised. Why? So you'll remember. What? She smiled softly. That even the hardest hearts can change. Kaelen closed his fingers around the stone. The beast quietly lay down between them, resting its great head across both their feet. Almost as though making a promise. Not of destiny, but of home. High above Blackthorn Keep, the first stars appeared one by one across the night sky. Neither Lyra nor Kaelen spoke again. They didn't need to. Some truths were too deep for words. And somewhere, beyond the palace walls, a little girl who had never stopped believing her brother would find her was waiting, unaware that the final chapter of their story had already begun. The morning sun rose gently over Blackthorn Keep, washing the ancient stone walls in warm golden light. For the first time in years, the castle courtyard echoed with children's laughter instead of soldiers' commands. The rescued boys and girls chased one another freely, no chains on their wrists, no fear in their eyes. Finn stood among them, smiling as a royal messenger hurried toward him with joyful news. His little sister had been found alive in a distant border village and was already being escorted home under the Alpha King's personal protection. Across the courtyard, Lord Varys and the corrupt council members were led away in iron shackles, stripped of every title and privilege. Before the gathered packs, Alpha King Kaelen announced new pack laws declaring that no child, refugee, or prisoner could ever again be sold under royal authority. Every forged decree was publicly burned, while the remaining slave wagons were destroyed forever. Standing beside him, Lyra watched the flames rise into the bright morning sky. The white beast quietly walked to her side and gently placed the familiar river stone into her hand one final time. Kaelen smiled softly before taking her hand in front of the entire kingdom. This time, neither destiny nor tradition spoke for them. They chose each other willingly, proving that the strongest mate bond was built not by fate alone, but by compassion, trust, and the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves.